Continue Second Amendment arguments. We left off with the comparison showing, well, basically mass incompetence, the symmetry. And there's more ways to do this again and again and again. Mass failure. And so what we have is intentional destruction of capabilities, of fortitude, of true diversification, of protecting the future, of the capabilities needed. This is almost as bad as saying, look, we're going to teach you how to not understand how to fish, so you'll never be able to catch fish and feed yourself. It's not a game here. So, as we're working with this material, we have to think about what other tests are valid tests. Well, the tactical table is a valid test. It's pretty much a permanent test, except you don't see courts using it that often. It's crucial to do the national security arguments in the tactical table test, because here we have parties that worked on tactical tables, German-Prussian Empire, to come up with an understanding of any given subject to turn it into a mass tactical table exercise. And we're not talking just a few people, we're talking hundreds of people deliberately engineering something, engineering ways to circumvent and destroy laws of countries, belief systems of countries. So, we have a lot of different aspects on how that's done. And basically, it's a master puppeting scheme, the Royal German Empire effectively did. Move all factions around until you manipulate something to where you can get a clear advantage into getting in and getting forward, moving ground on the playing field. And of course, you would reinforce the people that you're working with in that area to say, oh, yes, well, we've actually been with you all along. But of course, when you say the same thing to everybody and you're putting money at everybody, and then you decide that, okay, you're going to cut off funding for some people and add more funding for another route, and then reinforce the part that you're saying, yes, we're your buddy. We've been with you all along. This is very serious European instrument designs that have an interest, and the interest is to destabilize and erode people like their toilet paper. They're just throwaway. People, we use them. They're a convenience. Oh, they're not convenient anymore. Whoop, get rid of it. So, no joke here. So, the tactical table arguments always have to be in play, respective to colonial constitutional capitalism. So we have a mass backlog, literally a mass backlog of all these different comparativeness items that were done, all this money that was provided to bring various types of forces and factions into the country to lever in for power. This is a reality that many people are refusing to accept. We have one of the Chief Justices saying basically, well, how can we be expected to be great historians? Well, the reality is you have people in courts trying to figure out how to have 1, 2, 3, 7 judges and staff members trying to figure out how to deal with law constructs that have had hundreds, and now things have evolved. Many thousands of people who have equated ways of deceptiveness for the purpose of weakening the original tactical table structure of not just the United States, but of colonial constitutional capitalism. So, some people would misread what she's saying, well, we need to eliminate the historical test. Well, if you eliminate historical tests saying that you're not historians, then there's these serious problems, very serious problems, because it's not going to fly. It's not going to work. This means people are trying to come up with fixed ways of saying, well, we got to get bang for the buck, and we can only use X number of people, and that's it, to decide anything. Well, that means that larger forces who've spent more time designing things are going to be able to make packages that are just going to come in like bulldozers and just completely wipe out all kinds of different cases, all kinds of different belief systems. So we have a discovery that somebody engineered a system deliberately. Who done it? The Royal German Empire did it deliberately. They deliberately engineered an understanding to be able to be more powerful than 7 judges. They did this on purpose. So as they do this, and they have the power of 200 experts instead of 7 experts with some staff, you're talking 200. And that was a starting point to expand on and then bring thousands of experts into working ways to do master circumvention. Now, if we're understanding tactical table logic, it's understandable that parties would invest more to discover more ways to manipulate the tactical table. Yet we haven't grown. We haven't grown with an understanding at a pace that's necessary. I was making these arguments before the year 2000. Part of the reason I was working on creating specialized AIs was for appropriate assistive tooling for the justice system. It was for Congress, the justice system, the whole 9 yards. And, of course, I keep coming under violent attacks, various attacks. Violence is something you can determine by people who make false laws. Anytime they're going to use anybody at any stage of the game to use a gun to enforce their edicts, force is obviously beyond just being implied. It, in fact, is a reality. So we have apparent addressing of parties doing opinions in the justice that prior to the creation of the Constitution, we already said, well, we're going to end up making a government. We want to make a republic. We want to be the investors and stockholders. And we want the people in government to only be temporary servants, only temporary. And it's, they're going to be doing a sacrifice to be temporary servants of the people, which is us, the stockholders. And we want to continuously be guaranteed access to the U.S. Treasury and lands to continually self-perpetuate construction, among other things. So it's all growth-based, positive-based, growth-based, make more assets, therefore justification on the counterbalance to print more currency. More currency is printed, more goods can be purchased, more goods can be sent worldwide and sold for coin, converted into metals. So, this perpetuates for a very long time. In many ways, it's still being done today. So, root arguments showing that, people voted before the Constitution existed. So, there's all these pre-existing laws and self-evident beliefs. The ability of people to have militias, because we, the people with our own militias, decided to make the government, decided to fight the revolution. The prerequisite understanding here is guns can never be removed. It's important because now we can look at those big, huge master tactical tables with advanced software, advanced AI, and we can see the logic and quantification of how the tactical tables work, how the battle of this all works. So we have people that are basically in government that get elected that are not qualified. We constantly have a series of laws being made, and the parties are not qualified to make the laws. They participated in a beauty contest, a popularity contest, and it had nothing to do whether they had the best idea to create the next series of hard asset developments, the next series of stimulus. We have a bunch of people running around going, oh, we're socialist, and we're just going to go uptown and jack the rich folks so we can have plenty of money for booze. Whatever the cause is, except this is not fruitful. This is not planting seeds, growing crops. This is not harvesting trees, making lumber, and in turn manufacturing furniture. This is not forward-moving. Socialism, as it is now, is not a forward-moving concept. It's not just dangerous. It's rooted in diabolical opposition to the Constitution of the United States. So we have to understand how to not get outmoded and realize, we're stuck in a never-ending series of diversified arguments that are still from our past. There's still tactical tables from items from our past that we haven't brought up to the table to have properly quantified in daily life, in daily court. We have the stupidest thing. We continuously have people making laws, wasting time making laws that are already on the books. The basic concept of whether or not somebody knew they were doing something wrong, whether they were doing something either being incompetent or whether they were doing something that was going to end up somehow being bad, this is already instilled in the basic understanding of law itself. Literally, we had California deciding, well, we should make laws against caste systems and ban them. We should never allow caste systems. And that's so insanely laughable that they could boldly stand up and admit that they apparently never read the Constitution of the United States. Caste systems are already illegal, and you're going to spend all this time developing laws respective to the area instead of understanding it's already illegal. It's about basically researching, investigating, taking people into custody and prosecuting them. So we have this colossal, continuous waste of time with legislatures. And we now have them getting more and more blatant about what they're doing. Very blatant. Because we evaluated many types of concepts before we made the country, and then decided to say, okay, we're going to have to guarantee certain things here. We need a document on the quick that's going to do this. So our choices now is we have to become more of historians for the court. Courts have to become more of historians, and they have to prepare for more and more wider and wider scope arguments. But there's a trick here. We have to understand origin intent items and not allow for people to make fancy new excuses that create conundrums. The current tactical table, respective to guns and militias, are actually reasonably clear in some ways. Potentially 200 million drones could be coming from China and attack us. Our military currently does not have a way to deal with that many drones. So, as we see these wars going on right now and drones are being used, we can see how effective they can be. So if somebody were to unleash 200 million drones on the United States, if citizens don't have firearms to assist, we'll be screwed rapidly. So it's one of those things that mass numbers of attack vessels that are automated can do things, and the only response that's practical is for citizens to individually come up with various methods and devices to deal with anti-drone technology. That means warfare rounds that basically are the type of thing to go after drones. And then, of course, we have different size limitations. The average civilian can only have a certain number of certain types of guns statistically. Not that some wouldn't necessarily be collectors, but there's going to be a whole series of things that are not going to exist for people the way certain things are. So it's very important to understand this. We have to deal with this, and we have to deal with penetrative mindsets that are involving themselves in mass economic sabotage. We have to prosecute these people as to the original laws and intents. And a lot of people that, where are those? We don't understand where they are. We have people that are so dumb they don't understand basic fabric structure of what's implied in the basic concepts of law itself. This is a serious problem, a very serious problem. So we have to deal with going after people at the top that are trying to destroy all of our futures. So the basic conclusions here continue on and on, no matter how many ways I keep going after different arguments. There's many arguments that are not included that actually have to become mandatory prerequisites. We have to add all kinds of extra wide scope stuff in. The reality that we have to make our people strong and their mindsets strong and their capabilities strong. Because if you don't have strong capabilities to be able to build with your own hands just to save your life from the elements, you're surrounded by maniacs. So, this is, these are, basic survival instincts that go way back. So we have to understand who are the vested citizens. This is important, and who are not the vested citizens. Because we had people that were classified by different labels. An immigrant could be an indentured servant, but an indentured servant was not an illegal immigrant, if this makes sense to anybody. They were people that were already in the vetting process. The British also didn't like that, by the way, because part of the process was, you're going to get land, you're going to become one of us. Oh, yeah, guns and gun training is part of the deal. You have to, be, swear loyalty to all of us. That's part of the program. Straight out. So, if they weren't, then they would not be able to fulfill contract. And of course, the British didn't like this because we were building more and more family, more and more community, and we were vetting more and more people a proper way, and we were working with firearms together to guarantee our futures. This didn't bode well with the British at all. So the wider scope understanding must always be that we, the people, always have the right to have our own militias. And there could be no type of impeding of our firearms or arms in any way, shape, or form, period, because we are also part of the system. If 200 million drones start attacking us, we become part of the fighting system. In fact, the numbers and the threat statistics are greater overall than they ever have been in history. The possibility that we could be invaded by hundreds of millions of drones is a first-time item. And the counter for that, in part, is the vast population of us citizens that will have to, in fact, use firearms to defend ourselves. So we have the greatest priority in the history of the nation to make sure that diversified training and diversified firearms are available to people. So and there's other things and other documents that people are forgetting, and that is that we have a contract, and if people want to step up and violate the contract, then that means the contract would be null and void. Well, we, the people of the militia, we, the people that always have the right to always maintain militias and always respond to insurrection, rebellion, invasion, and war, have our rights set out for us, so we can make courts at any time. Obviously, we want to follow reasonable protocols of law, but for parties to threaten this, those parties are diabolically opposing the Constitution. And we've been recording them for quite a long time, and it's very actionable. Because if these people go into rebellion, then they're saying that they're committing a coup, they're overthrowing the government, and they're bowing their neck saying, well, it's been decided. Oh, well, that means that none of this other stuff would be valid, and that means that your entire your entire rug that you're on does not exist, and you are therefore invalid, and you are an enemy of the Constitution and an enemy of the state. It's something that many people they're just, it's not clicking in their head. If the Constitution is no longer the supreme item of validity, then we have a huge problem. And we have to address all these massive, wide-scope designs of Royal German Empire and Marxism and communism and socialism that were not present at the foundations of the country. This is a key item to bring out historically again, by the way. Marxism did not exist at the founding of the country. So it's very important to understand this. Now, part of the ways that some of these things could work in the past, we've had political parties that were shut down, political parties that were brought into being, and they were shut down because they decided to diabolically oppose the Constitution, so they were basically shut down. So it is of key importance to understand that people thinking they can just bow their neck and say, it's been decided, we'll arrest you if you can't do investigations, or we'll arrest you. If you show any evidence, we'll arrest you. This is insanity. These are people who have decided that they're now dictators. And they're going to control all these other complexities, as well as a continuation of, mass insurrection by virtue of bringing in foreign entities, immigrants. That's soldier voter. Yeah, that's immigrant. That's non-citizen soldier voter. So that's a problem, because that means invasion. And because of the intent and the actions of parties, it also means war. So, we're still stuck in the California War at this point. It's not going to end soon. So, I can even go on more with, all these other items triage, have these people, what's the size of priorities and death rates and stuff. Here's like, I don't know, 240 some different categories that are more dangerous to people's lives before you get to guns. And these people will walk by and say they don't care about these other statistics. It's not funny. It's not a joke. Significant portions of cheese is responsible for making people sick. So we have to do something. We have to bring in mass economic modeling and economic criminology and literally begin the arrest sequence of parties who are connected to foreign instruments and diabolically opposing the Constitution of the United States, because it's never been allowed. And we can't allow it. And we have prime examples of what happens when things go unchecked for vast periods of time. California is a prime example of that. Part of the cheating that California's been doing in elections is the alien soldier voter aspect. Tactical table violation.